Hey, I'm Dr. Jen Landa, OBGYN, hormone specialist, and creator of the Endless Energy Program. And now I want to talk to you about my 7 secrets to cut out stress and have more energy. Honestly, you must control stress to live a healthier and happier life. You know, I talk a lot about getting my spark back, and one of the big keys to me to getting my spark back, meaning my energy, my sex drive, my ability to control my weight, look better, feel better, better moods, all of those things, my ability to control those things rests to some really big degree on my ability to control stress. Am I perfect at that? Far from it. But I know when I do all of the healthy habits that I've learned to control my stress, that I do a lot better, as I'm sure you do too. So I wanted to create this video to remind you of all of the different stressors in your life and the role they may be playing on sucking out your energy. We don't want that, and there are really simple, easy ways to change your habits, to get rid of your stress, and to live a more stress-free life. And when you have less stress, we know you'll have more energy. And if you have more energy, you can just tackle everything that you want to do, whether it's have better relationships, get ahead at work, have a tidier house, whatever it is that you want out of your life, more fit body, anything you can really imagine, you're going to be able to get it if you have more energy. So without further ado, let's talk about some of this stress stuff. Let's face it, stress nowadays is more common than ever before, especially since the economic crisis. Levels of stress and anxiety are up everywhere, and it's obvious everywhere you look, including doctors' prescription pads. Valium prescriptions, Valium, you know, the sedative Valium prescriptions are up 13%, despite the fact that Valium is an addictive drug. You can develop tolerance for it. You can become addicted to it. If you're on Valium or Xanax right now, Ativan, these are all barbiturates. Barbiturates are addictive, and we want to get you off them. I want you to be off them, and I know you probably want to be off them too. So Valium's up 13%. Antidepressants are up 33%. And we already know that too many times doctors just take out the prescription pad when you say you're anxious or depressed. And those prescriptions are going up every day. And I'm talking medications like Zoloft, Paxil, Prozac, and so many more. Effexor, citalopram, which is, what is the brand name of that? Not coming to me right now. Cymbalta. Lexapro. I mean, you could go on and on and on. And the reason there are so many of these is because there are so many people taking them. It's a bazillion-dollar business, right? But what are the odds that you actually have a Zoloft deficiency going on? Obviously, none. But is it more likely that you have a hormone imbalance going on? And you know that's what I talk a lot about, right? When we are busy making stress hormone, cortisol, we rob our body of other hormones, the ones that we like, the calming hormone progesterone, and the mood balancing, energizing hormone testosterone. So I'll save the science for a little later. We'll get into that in a few minutes. But you know, it's just really insane, this whole anxiety thing. And I know you know it. I know you've felt it. I feel it. I get anxious. You know, I've shared with you other times and other places that I tend to get toward what I call burning up. And for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about when I say burning up, I'll explain it in a few minutes. But I sometimes find it difficult to relax and feel anxious. 18% of U.S. adults in a recent survey showed that they're suffering from anxiety. So 18% suffering from anxiety, 30% report depression sometimes. Basically, stress and anxiety are universal and almost impossible to measure. There was a study in the Journal of Clinical Psychiatry. This is unbelievable to me. The cost of anxiety disorders is $42 billion a year. $42 billion. Can you imagine? Due to anxiety and stress. And in a survey by the American Psychological Association, up to 30% of people surveyed report that they have severe stress. So not just that they're stressed out, but that they have severe stress. This severe stress that people have is taking a huge toll. And you know it because if you have severe stress, if you're one of those 30%, or even if you just have moderate stress, you know that that stress is taking it out of you. And what stress is costing you and what it's causing for you. It's causing you to be tired. It's causing you to have a lack of motivation. It's causing poor performance at work or anywhere else. I know when I get stressed out, I get unfocused. I can't focus, I can't concentrate, and I wind up performing more poorly than I would if I wasn't stressed. That's even shown. There's so many studies that they've shown when they stress people and have them take a test versus when they don't stress them and have them take the test, the stressed people perform worse. So it's just a given. You're going to have more memory issues, and you're going to have physical ailments. You're going to have things, and you maybe already do, have headaches from stress. I know I get that sometimes, that tension headache, that tightening of the muscles in the back of your neck, and then it crawls up your head. And stomach issues, IBS, that's a stress issue. Even rashes. There's a condition called urticaria where people get hives kind of out of nowhere for no reason. And I've seen so many people try to link their hives up to certain dietary things or environmental things. But one of the things that people with this urticaria, with these weird rashes, report to me more than anything is that they tend to get the rash when they get stressed. Stress just causes all kinds of things for us. And not to mention, we've got an exhaustion epidemic going on, particularly in women, right? Because yes, we were told we can have it all and do it all. So now here we are feeling kind of like if we're not having it all and doing it all, then what's wrong with us? There's a lot of those perception problems going on out there, I think. And you know what? It happens to me too. I feel like, how is it that I can't work a full day, take care of the kids at night, jump in bed and have sexy sex, and all the things that we're expected to do all day long. Not only that, at work we're not getting paid as much as men, so that adds to the stress. And then at home we're still doing more than our fair share usually, so it's no wonder that you are exhausted. It makes sense. But this exhaustion epidemic is really a lot of it stemming from the stress. Plain and simple. Imagine what life would be like for you if you could live with less stress. Just imagine what would be possible, how much more you could get done in a day, how much better you could sit and connect with your family at the end of the day, at the dinner table, if you weren't constantly kind of stressed out and trying to make everything perfect or trying to check your iPhone between, courses or whatever. Imagine how much better you'd feel just every day, how much better your moods would be, and with those better moods, how much better you'd connect with your family. There are so many things that could change in your life if you change your stress. And you might be sitting here thinking, yeah, well, but my stress is my stress and there's nothing I can do about it. But I will beg to differ. There is a lot you can do about your stress. And if you think about it, you probably know it too. Technically, stress is really a lot of it. It boils down to your habits. It's just like, I say to be fit, you have to follow certain habits, right? You have to follow certain dietary habits, exercise habits, et cetera, et cetera. So to live without stress, you have to follow certain anti-stress habits. And maybe part of the problem is you just don't know exactly what it is. So I am going to reveal to you my 7 stress-free secrets to living a happier and healthier life just in a little short while. But first, you know how I am about the science. So for all you science geeks who are loving science, then come on along with me. And for the rest of you, well, just try to follow along or tune me out for the next few minutes so that I can get my science fix out of the way. And then we can get to the nitty gritty of what the 7 secrets are. All right. So your adrenal glands. This may be a review for some of you. You may have heard me talk about this before, but basically your adrenal glands are these small glands that sit on top of your kidneys, and they help you handle stress. The adrenals make cortisol and other hormones like adrenaline, epinephrine, other things. But the most important one that we're going to talk about is the hormone cortisol, because cortisol is your stress hormone. It's your fight or flight hormone. It's your hormone that your body will release in an emergency or a panic situation. So cortisol is your stress hormone. Great. You were made to be able to handle stress. The problem is you are made to be able to handle a very short-term stress, or what we would call an acute stressor. Something that happens like really, I always think of these things from the perspective of, earlier man who didn't have our modern stresses, but, the stress was running from a saber-toothed tiger. And either you got away or you got eaten, but either way, it was over really fast. So your body, has this big stress, and then it gets to calm down. The problem is you are living at 80% saber-toothed tiger attack every day, all day. We are living under an enormous stress and pressure. And when that stress and pressure becomes as chronic as it is, day after day, every day, it takes a toll on these adrenal glands. And the toll can take its form in several ways. So there's basically 3 energy states that I talk about: burning up, burning low, and burning out. When you're under the acute stress phase and your body is handling the stress, at least somewhat, you are in the beginning phases of stress, and that's this energy state called burning up. And when you burn up, you usually handle stress somewhat well. Sometimes anxiety may take over. Some people, though, who are burning up at the very early stages of burning up are actually great multitaskers. They juggle everything really well, but it's when that stress continues that these great multitaskers start really burning up. And when they're burning up, they start to gain weight. They start to see more inflammation, because when you gain weight, fat cells make inflammation, and you may feel that inflammation. You may feel sicker, pain in your joints, pain in your muscles. You may start to feel, you may start to be so busy and so overwhelmed with everything that you get irritable, cranky. You start to see, your mood, your family starts complaining about your mood. And you may find that you're just so busy all the time that you don't even take care of yourself. Your diet starts to slip, the exercise starts to go, and you just feel supercharged all the time, like you can't relax. That's burning up. And I know this one really well, because that's how, when I get stressed out and I don't follow my stress reduction techniques and I don't follow my 3 weeks to Endless Energy program on a regular basis, that's when I start burning up. And when I start burning up, I know I'm there because I just can't relax. I can't stop checking my phone, my email, my Facebook, whatever. I just feel like I'm like driven by a motor, if you will. That's how I feel. And I feel like it takes me extra time to relax on vacation. I have a harder time meditating. I have a harder time falling asleep at night. Those are my signs when I'm burning up, that I really need to pay some special attention and start taking better care of myself and my stress. Because everybody slides in their habits now and then, right? So if you don't manage this, or if you haven't managed it in the past, then you might progress to burning low. And if you're burning low, you might start to feel more overwhelmed, anxious, and easily irritated on an all the time basis. But more than that, you start to feel not like burning up people feel stressed and wired. Burning low people feel stressed and tired. So you start to feel like you're pushing yourself, like you wake up kind of tired, you have some coffee and you might feel great for a couple of hours. Then you might feel, oh, where's my coffee again? Where's my sugar? And like you're pushing yourself to get through the day. Everything is a little bit more of an effort. You start running out of steam in the midday, and you need the caffeine and the sugar to keep you going, and you're just pushing to get through the day. And that's what happens when you're burning low. And that means the adrenals have gotten so used to living under this constant stress, pressure, threat that they kind of just don't keep up anymore, and they don't make the same amount of stress hormone that they used to. And that's what I call burning low. And then if you're not careful, you can get to the point of complete adrenal fatigue, adrenal failure, almost near adrenal failure, that I call burning out. And that means that you really lost the ability to deal with stress. Your body's lost the ability to even make that cortisol to keep up with the stress. So you just feel like you can't even get out of bed anymore. You just feel exhausted all the time. Caffeine and sugar, barely, they give you a little bit of a kick, but then you feel actually worse after you've had them than you did before you started. You just feel tired no matter what you do. Even exercise makes you tired. Thinking makes you tired, and stress definitely makes you really tired because you can't deal with the things that you used to deal with, and you may lose, even your circadian rhythm becomes off, so it becomes hard to stay awake during the day, but then it becomes hard to sleep at night because the cortisol being so off can throw off your melatonin too. And these people, they just don't, people who feel this way, they're just miserable, and they are stressed, but they are burned out. And physical ailments start to come into the picture. You start getting sick more often, like everything that goes around, you just catch it. You become very sensitive to stress. So IBS becomes a big issue with people who are burning out. No sex drive, a complete brain fog makes it really difficult to concentrate or learn anything. If you've got these symptoms, then you are burning out. And you know what? I know because I've been there. When I burned out, I had no idea what was wrong with me. Even as a physician, I had no idea what was wrong with me. And that was incredibly frustrating. And I'll mention that in a few more minutes, why your doctor hasn't gone into any of this with you. So let's talk about types of stress. The way I look at stress, there's two main different types. There's emotional stress and there's physical stress. So emotional stress, the things that cause the most emotional stress for people, believe it or not, it's funny because I tell people that we need novelty a lot in our lives, especially in our sex lives, and to keep us interested and alive and alert and awake and all kinds of things. But novelty also can be a stress. So when things are new, like a new job or a new city that you've moved to, new relationships, new living circumstances, any of those things can be a big stress. Unpredictability is another big emotional stress for people, emotional threat for people. So when you don't know what's going to happen, you've got fear of the unknown. That is a huge stress. Of course, living with a sense of threat of any kind. So whether it's a threat of being fired at work, a threat of getting kicked out of your house because you haven't paid your bills, or threat of losing your car. I mean, there's all kinds of things that we could live under a sense of threat. A threat that, if you don't shape up your mood, your sex drive, all of those kind of things, that maybe your spouse is going to leave you, or maybe you feel like you feel a sense of threat that your kids are going to hate you because you're a mean mommy. I know I have certainly felt a lot of those threats before and been concerned that, what if my kids grow up and hate me because I'm mean sometimes, or, when I lost my sex drive, when I lost my spark, and what if I lost my marriage, So there's a lot of stuff that, this is a lot of stress, and anything that we feel a loss of control about. So whether it's having health problems and you feel like you've lost control over your health, or lost control over your finances, lost control, so many things that we feel like we can lose control. And when we lose control, we are more stressed out. Physical stressors. So I talk a lot about physical stressors because I feel in some ways that the physical stressors are almost easier to do something about than the emotional ones for people. But during this particular video, I want to talk about both. So physical stressors, one of the biggest ones I talk about is the sugar roller coaster. So when blood sugar is bouncing up, and then when it goes up must come down, we have a sugar roller coaster. Blood sugar going up and blood sugar coming down. Your body interprets that blood sugar coming down as a reason to hit the panic button. Low blood sugar is a panic situation for your body, and it causes your body to activate the adrenals to release stress hormone. And if they can, they will. And if they can't, then it just makes your whole situation worse. Adrenal toxins like sugar, caffeine, alcohol, those all wreak havoc on the adrenals. Pesticides and pollutants and things we're exposed to in the environment every day, toxins, are a big stress on your body. Illness is a big stress on your body. Pain is a big stress on your body. So if you live in chronic pain, you've got chronic stress from that. And inflammation is probably one of the biggest stressors that we're dealing with in our society nowadays. Inflammation, there's a lot of confusion about inflammation, but basically inflammation is a bunch of chemicals that get released in your body. And one of the big ways that these inflammatory chemicals get released is from fat cells. We used to think that fat was just inert, that it just laid there and it was a storage mechanism. But now we know that actually fat cells produce toxins, and those toxins are these chemicals that produce inflammation. And inflammation causes every disease under the sun, from cancer to Alzheimer's to heart disease, and I could go on and on and on naming diseases that are caused by inflammation. So like I said, fat causes inflammation. Inflammation causes stress. So if you've got fat, you've got stress. And it's a big reason to try to take off some weight. So these are some of the physical stressors that you might not even realize that you're exposed to. When I ask you, are you stressed? You're not thinking about, oh yeah, I have too much weight on me, so yeah, I'm stressed. Oh, I get exposed to pollutants and toxins from the environment, so I'm stressed. But yeah, it's all true. It all plays in. So now I want to talk to you, though, I want to focus more on the emotional stressors for a moment. What causes stress? One of the things that I think is a great tool to assess your stress is the Holmes and Ray Life Stress Inventory. So they look at a whole bunch of different things that may be going on in a person's life, and they rate them in terms of how stressful they are. Rating the death of a spouse as 100. So it's a scale that goes 0 to 100, and death of a spouse is rated as 100. Divorce, though, not so far behind at 73. Separation at 65. But believe it or not, sometimes good stresses are big stresses. Like marriage, getting married, is a 50, whereas being fired from work is a 47. So getting married and getting fired, they're almost the same on the stress scale. So I might be switching it up on you and giving you something you're not expecting, but even good stress is stress. And your body has to be equipped to handle the stress, whether it's the good or the bad. So going on, death of a close friend is 37, right? But pregnancy is 40. It's really interesting to me. Reading that over even in preparing this talk said to me, oh my gosh, wow. Because you know what? After I had my first baby, my spark problem, my energy crisis got so much worse. It was insane. And now that I see what a big, I'm reminded of what a big stressor pregnancy itself is, it really tells me a lot. And I think that's a big reason why we see so many women have postpartum and postpartum depression and all kinds of other things. But yet again, back to the fact that sometimes a good thing is stressful, and outstanding personal achievement is rated as a 28. And marital reconciliation, another good one, as a 45. So we have to remember there's both good stress and bad stress. But one of the most important things to do is to make sure that you are evaluating that stress. You need to evaluate your stress. So one of the biggest reasons I find that people are so stressed out is really because they're so used to it that they don't even think about it anymore. They don't think about what's causing their stress and what they need to do to change the stress. But even thinking about, you can't fix what you can't measure, right? So if you're not measuring it, if you're not looking at it, and you don't even realize it's there, and then you can't fix it. So I really encourage you to check out this stress inventory that I just mentioned and add up your score and see how you're doing and see what kind of stressors you have going on in your life. And then there's another way to evaluate it. Testing your hormones. So how do you test your hormones and your adrenal function? It's really simple, actually. There's a saliva test. The saliva test, that means you spit in a tube. Yeah, I know it sounds totally gross, and it is kinda, but it works really well. It's the gold standard for measuring cortisol levels. And it's easy because you can measure it throughout the day. And that's one of the most important things. We want to look at cortisol as you go throughout the day, not just one time in the morning that you can get in a blood test after you've just been poked with a needle and been totally stressed out. Yeah, that one makes a lot of sense. No, checking cortisol via blood doesn't really make a lot of sense. So there's saliva test. You can check it in urine, but usually that's a 24-hour urine. And that doesn't work really well because cortisol is at its highest level peak in the morning, and then it goes down as we go throughout the day. And so we want to map that. We want to map that cortisol and see what it's doing in the morning, and then at noon, and then in the evening, and then at night. So we can see if your cortisol levels are correct, are proper. Well, good news is you can even do this in your own home. That's what the saliva test is, and you can send that to the lab, and then you get the results back, or your doctor can recommend this test for you and get the results back, and then you can look at it, interpret it, and see what's going on, and see whether your cortisol levels are keeping up with the demand of your lifestyle. So it's interesting, though, that sometimes even normal cortisol levels, if your cortisol levels come back completely normal, but you're completely stressed out all the time, that's actually not normal. That means that supply isn't keeping up with demand. So it's important. It can be an important thing to get your cortisol levels measured as well. Now, to equate that back to burning up, burning low, and burning out, you can look at these cortisol levels, these saliva cortisol levels, to get a better idea of whether you're burning up, burning low, or burning out. So somebody who's burning up will have multiple high cortisol levels throughout the day usually. Somebody who's burning low will have at least one low cortisol level during the day, and then somebody who's burning out will typically have 2 or 3 or more, or 4 or 5, even if you're doing a 5th sample, low cortisol levels throughout the day. So now you might be asking the question, why doesn't my doctor offer me a test for cortisol function? Why have I never been asked about that? Why don't they look at my adrenal function? Well, you know what? I'm asking the same question too, but I know the answer because I went through medical school, and I'll tell you, in medical school, they told me almost nothing about the adrenal glands. I think we spent probably 1 hour on it, and we talked about the people in the worst situation on either side. Either you have really, really low cortisol or really, really high cortisol, but anything in between is just not treated as very important. And so people who, are near the criteria for disease of too much cortisol, they don't have a disease. So they're not treated. They're not diagnosed. People who are near the very, very low end, also not treated with a disease, not diagnosed. So unfortunately, medical school mainly teaches you about disease, how to diagnose and treat disease. If you don't actually meet the criteria for a disease, then sorry, you don't really count. Which is crazy because there are so many of us walking around with this problem. And the problem is that we don't quite meet the criteria for the disease, but we definitely don't have optimal function. And this was my situation when I lost my spark, which, my sex drive was the first thing to go. My energy was the next thing. And then I finally was so far into burning out that I couldn't even handle stress. And I was at the point where I felt like a terrible wife, a terrible mom, and then a not so good OBGYN. And that caused me to actually quit delivering babies and quit doing surgery because I just didn't have the nerve for it anymore. And it wasn't me. I looked in the mirror and I was like, who is this person? This is not me. And what is going on? And I checked everything I could think to check, and I couldn't even think of who to ask about what was going on with me. And not only that, actually, truly, I was embarrassed too, because I was like, how could this be happening to me if I am supposed to be the expert? How could I share that something was going on with me? Anyway, So the bottom line was I didn't know how to help myself until I learned more about regenerative medicine and functional medicine and hormones, bioidentical hormones and nutritional therapies and things that I didn't learn about in medical school, frankly. You know, I am very, very grateful for my medical education, and I'm very grateful that we have our American medical system because we do treat disease pretty well in a lot of ways, but there are a lot of things that we're still not looking at and we need to be looking at. And I know if you have these problems that you've probably been to a doctor or two and they've probably told you, well, you're fine. There's nothing wrong with you. This is just the way that it is. But this is not just the way that it is. There is plenty that you can do for this. And that's what I want to get into now. I want to get into the treatment. Okay. So the first thing, like I said, is to evaluate the stress, figure out where it's coming from. And then we want to get into these 7 things, these 7 areas where you have stress that you might not even realize you have stress. And I want to teach you my secrets for fixing them. Okay, number 1, this one's an obvious one, but maybe you haven't even thought about how much stress it's putting on your body. Sleep. Sleep is one of the most important things that you will do to balance your hormones. You see, yes, you knew you needed sleep, but you might not have known that it will balance your hormones. And that if you don't sleep, you are activating the panic button on the adrenal glands, right? We all know if you don't sleep for extended periods of time, that it'll actually kill you. And a big part of this is because of the stress response. So if you are only sleeping 5-6 hours a night, maybe you're just killing yourself slowly, right? Yeah, not so good. Even if you think that you are handling it, I am telling you, I don't believe it. You're not. When you sleep less, and this has been proven many times, when you sleep less, you are more prone to making errors. Your memory is more poor. You're more irritable. So you're going to be less effective in everything that you do. And no matter what you say, I don't believe you that you if you think you aren't. Because we make a lot of reparative hormones. Sleep is the way that we repair ourselves. And if we don't sleep, we deplete cortisol and we go into burning up mode and eventually into burning low and burning out mode. And that is sucking your energy. So yes, it's fairly obvious if you don't sleep, you might not have energy. But I run across people all the time who tell me, I don't sleep and I have no problem. I have energy and I'm fine and there's just no time to sleep. But I beg to differ, my friend. If you don't sleep 7 to 8 hours a night, you have to start sleeping. You have to make it a priority. All right, what's next up? Exercise. Exercise is a huge area in where this is concerned. So it's really interesting. People, in terms of exercise, people think exercise should make you energized. And sometimes that's the case. And if that's the case for you, great. That means your adrenals are still doing pretty well. So that means you're not in a state of burning out. But if you are burning out, exercise makes you more tired. So listen to your body. If you feel more tired after you exercise than you did before you started, you're exercising too hard. I know you don't think that you're going to hear a doctor tell you you need to exercise less, but that may be the case. First of all, there are many people out there over-exercising, and let's get into one of my favorite subjects, which provokes a lot of debate and discussion and controversy. I used to do half marathons and triathlons, and then I really delved into the research about them. It's been shown in many studies that endurance sports will cause a drain on the adrenals, raise cortisol if the body is capable of making lots of cortisol. And like I said, if you're burning low and burning out, it might not be. So endurance exercise will put a big drain on your adrenal glands because your body sees it like a stress. Like I said, our bodies were made for short-term stresses like running from the saber-toothed tiger, but they weren't made to run from the saber-toothed tiger for 26 miles. As a matter of fact, didn't that guy who ran the marathon drop dead after he delivered the message? That should be a message to us. We're not supposed to be running marathons. And I know some of you out there are addicted to it, and you're going to be really mad at me for saying this. But there are all kinds of new studies showing us all kinds of problems that endurance athletes are starting to have, problems that you would never expect, like problems with their hearts, blood pressure, all kinds of issues that you would never expect people who are that healthy to have. But it may just be because it raises the levels of cortisol. And cortisol, high cortisol causes high blood pressure, diabetes, all kinds of health problems. High cortisol also causes the body to break down in many different ways. So high cortisol breaks down muscle, it breaks down bone, it causes thinning hair, thinning skin, thinning nails. It's not a pretty picture. And so if you're running a marathon, there was one study I read that showed that after a major race, athletes will have an elevated cortisol for 2 weeks until the cortisol recovers to its normal level. Well, so what is a marathon runner tending to do during those 2 weeks? Do they just like rest and completely sack out? No, right? They go back into training for the next race. And so there you go, back into the same thing over and over and over. And not only does one of the hormone changes is higher cortisol, but the other hormone change that happens with endurance training is lowered testosterone. And we all know what I think about testosterone. Testosterone is great for you. It increases energy. It improves your mood, your memory, your focus. It burns body fat. It builds muscle. It builds bone. Testosterone is the bomb. I love my testosterone. Don't take it away. And don't take yours away by doing too much endurance training. I will tell you from personal experience, I used to do 12 hours a week of endurance training. And I wasn't getting in better shape. And I was like, what is up with this? And you know what? By just necessity of time, I cut back on the racing. And I decided that the only thing I could really fit in was high intensity training, half-hour workouts, 3 to 4 times a week. So now I only train an hour and a half to 2 hours per week. And I am telling you, I am in better shape than I have been in. I'm in better shape now at 46 than I was at 26. I am telling you, I have abs. Man, you can see them. And you can see them way better than when I was running marathons or, well, half marathon. I never ran a full marathon. Was not on my bucket list. And now that I know all this data, I am thankful it wasn't. Just look at the pictures that you see of sprinter exercisers versus marathoners. There is a huge difference there. And if you haven't looked, look, because you will decide very quickly that you would rather look like Jackie Joyner-Kersee or Usain Bolt than the people who won the New York City Marathon. I don't know any marathoners' names off the top of my head, but sprinters are fit and toned and muscular, whereas most marathoners look a little too waif-like for my taste at any rate. So, exercise is super important. Now, I did not say, by the way, let me just be very, very clear here. I did not say don't exercise. If your body can handle it, I want you to be doing high intensity interval training or burst training 3 to 4 days a week. What do I mean by that? Quite simply, if you're a runner, I mean interval training. Do some really fast, then some recovery, then really fast, then recovery. A really simple method that I use is like a 3-minute warm-up, then run as fast as you can for a minute. And I usually do this, by the way, after I've lifted some weights and done some resistance training and gotten myself a little bit warm, I guess. Then I get on the treadmill, go for 3 minutes at a moderate pace. Then I go for a minute as fast and hard as I can. Then I recover for 2 minutes. So I go easy, let my heart rate come down. And then I go as hard as I can again for a minute and then go easy for 2 minutes. Do that 4 or 5 times. The great news is your workout doesn't have to take as long and you're going to do something that's healthier for your hormones. Now, what if you are too tired to do any of that? Then I would recommend to at least take gentle walks, do some gentle yoga, find some ways to move your body where you don't feel more exhausted than when you started. And yoga and walks are a great way to do that. And you can work your way up. Okay, that's enough about exercise for now. Diet. Well, those of you who know about my 3 weeks to endless energy program, you know it's all about diet. Diet is super, super important. So one of the biggest things you want to do is you want to avoid poorly processed foods. Most of the foods out there that we eat are poorly processed foods. They're made with artificial preservatives and extra sweeteners and maybe pesticides and all kinds of things that are bad for us that you don't need and you don't want. So you want to make sure that you're eating foods from nature as much as possible. Shopping the outside of the supermarket, the perimeter of the supermarket. So you're avoiding those packaged foods. You want to avoid anything from a bottle, a bag, a box, beverages and cans and things like that. You want to try as much as possible to eat foods that your great grandmother would have recognized as food. You want to emphasize healthy fruits, vegetables, nuts, beans, seeds, lean proteins. These are the things you want to emphasize. And I go into much greater depth on all of this in the Endless Energy program, 3 weeks to endlessenergy.com. You also want to make sure you're getting enough of the major food groups like protein. It's important to get protein within an hour of waking up and then throughout the day several times. You also want to make sure you're getting healthy fats. That no fat craze thing, that was no fat, no way. That is not healthy for you. So you don't want to avoid fat. And most of the time, when you eat something that's low fat, it's high in sugar because they needed to do something to make it taste good. So you need to get your fats, your healthy fats from things like avocado, coconut oil, salmon, nuts. There's all kinds of great ways to get healthy fats. And finally, avoid sugar. You want to really try to cut out the sugar because remember, like I said, blood sugar goes up, and then it crashes down, and that stresses out your adrenals. That causes you to get tired. That stress causes you to get tired. So you've got to cut out the sugar habit too. So those are some dietary hints, some of the biggest things to work on in terms of your diet to alleviate the stress on your body. What about work? Do people call you a workaholic? Have you become more stressed because people at work are getting laid off and you've got more to do than ever before? Are you feeling like you're unable to ever get off your iPhone or your Android at night? These are issues that a lot of people are facing at work these days. Maybe your work is being a homemaker. Well, let me tell you, in my opinion, homemakers, you are my heroes because in all honesty, I find homemaking more stressful most of the time than being at work. So in all honesty, I feel like in some ways I don't, cut it as a mom or a housewife because seriously, it really does stress me out. And I know there are women out there who are like me. It's hard to admit that, but it is true. So sometimes work is my escape. So I know that homemaking is probably even more stressful than the workplace. And so we'll talk about both. I want you to start thinking right now, though, about how you can eliminate some of your work stress by taking back some of the control. Remember, we said loss of control is one of the places where people get more stress. So if you don't feel prepared to do a job that's been assigned to you, ask for some additional training to get you more prepared. That's happening to a lot of people these days in this climate of layoffs and stuff. People are being asked to take on additional jobs and additional work, and they don't necessarily know what they're doing. And if you don't know what you're doing, of course you're going to be stressed out. So you've got to speak to somebody and tell them that you need more training. Also, when you don't know what is a priority, when so much work is getting heaped on you, but it all seems like it's top priority, it can't all be top priority because you can't do it all at once. So you've got to talk to whoever's piling this work on. You've got to talk to your superiors about what is the priority here. What are the most important things? You've got to tell them that, there's only so much that I can do and this is the amount that I can do. And so what do you want me to do first? And then what do you want me to do next? So that you have a really clear understanding of what you need to do. And that will reduce your work stress. So what about homemakers? What about at home? So really, one of the biggest things, and you may have heard it before, but it's super important to really follow through on this one, is work smarter, not harder. To do that, you need to eliminate the clutter. They've done tons of studies that show that clutter stresses people out. I know I see it all the time in myself, and I just have to like, okay, I need like half a day to clean because I am just so stressed out. And what an awesome feeling of accomplishment when you finish, right? Organizing the family, organize them at night to make the morning rush easier. The morning rush can be one of my most stressful times of the day. And if I start the morning out stressed out like that, what kind of mood does it put me in for the rest of the day? So picking out the clothes the night before, making sure the backpacks are all packed and ready and waiting to go, even put them in the car if necessary, so that you make sure that you have it all, that you have everything ready to go. Keeping a to-do list. To-do lists are a great way to stay organized, stay prioritized, and know what you've got going on. One of my favorite gals, her name is Paula Rizzo, created a website called listproducer.com. So check out listproducer.com for all kinds of tips and tricks from Paula Rizzo, who is the list queen in my book. She runs her life by lists every day, and the lists help keep her on track, help keep her organized, help keep her productive. And if you're not making a list, you might be making a big mistake. And so check out Paula's website. She has tons of tips, tons of apps. She uses a lot of phone apps, and they are just great to help keep you organized and help keep you on track and help lower your stress. Okay, this one is a really important one to me, and this could be at work or at home or anywhere in your life, really. But you need to stop being such a people pleaser. You need to put boundaries in place. This is one that I learned very, in my opinion, late in life. But then again, I find I'm teaching it to women and men sometimes older than me. So I felt kind of stupid that I didn't learn about this till I was in my 40s. But no need to feel stupid. At least I did learn. So really one of my big things, and truly this came from childhood, was being a people pleaser. I learned very young that one of the ways that I got attention from my folks, and one of the ways that I smoothed over emotional upsets at home, which were a frequent occurrence, unfortunately, when I was a kid, was to be a people pleaser. I felt like if I did everything right, then maybe people wouldn't be so upset. Maybe it would make life smoother, life better. And I think too many of us grew up with the same story, and we wind up acting out that story over and over in adulthood. And what we wind up doing is we wind up pleasing other people, sometimes to the detriment of ourselves, meaning do things that we don't want to do for other people because they want it. This is a stupid little example, but it just happened, so it's fresh in my mind. My son was very upset with me yesterday because I didn't want to take him out to get his favorite sandwich at his favorite sandwich shop. We had plenty of food in the house, and he was kind of storming around and stomping around, and there was a piece of me that was like, oh, it's just a few minutes down the road to the store. Maybe I should just do it for him. I should be a good mom and this and that. And, I was talking to myself this whole guilt thing, but you know what? I didn't want to. Actually, I had a pretty stressful day, and what I wanted to do was take a bath. So you know what? I thought about it, and I set a boundary, and I told my kid, I'm sorry. We have plenty of food in the house for you to finish. I'm sorry. I'm not going to take you out for that sandwich. I take you out for sandwiches pretty frequently, and there's food right here. And what I need to do right now is I need to go do something for myself. And you know what? I was so happy I did. And I think in the end, he would be happy I did, because you know what? If I had taken him for the sandwich, I would have been pissed about it. I would have resented him. I would have been angry. And nobody wants to get taken for a sandwich by an angry mom, right? They'd rather have their mom go take a bath and then come out and be really nice and cheerful. And you know what? That's what happened. And it was awesome. And that's just a little stupid example. But I think those are the most common things that happen to us all day long. And we wind up giving into things, and then we're resentful at the people around us. And this used to happen way too much in my relationship with my husband, Adam. And I would do all kinds of things I didn't want to do. Bend over backwards and walk on eggshells and always trying to make sure that everything was okay with everybody else, to the point where I got miserable. And I learned one of the most important things I ever could have learned from an amazing marital and family therapist. Her name's Anita Riggs. And she taught me, if self-care is low, resentment is high. And so nowadays, if I'm feeling resentful, I'm always looking around for, what am I doing not caring for? What have I done that I'm not caring for myself? Or what am I doing where I'm not caring for myself and I'm not saying no where I need to? If any of this sounds familiar to you and you're not saying no where you need to, then it's time. It's time for you to start saying no. And start looking at the reasons why you're not saying no. If you're feeling resentful and you're feeling angry at people, it's time to start putting in those boundaries in place, saying no. And it could be other people in your life. It could be family members like your mom. It could be your sister. It could be friends. It could be all kinds of things. People sort of guilting you into doing things, and then you get stressed out about doing all these things that you don't want to be doing. And if a lot of the things on your list are things that you don't want to be doing, well, yeah, of course you're going to be stressed out. So it's really important to make sure that other people take ownership of the things that they could and should be doing for themselves. And you know what the bottom line is? That sandwich shop is so close that my son could ride his bike there. And if he really wanted the sandwich badly enough, he would have. But you know what? He didn't. So it was easy when it was bullying me into doing it, but not so much. He decided to have something at home ultimately. So just start caring for yourself a little bit more and start saying no a little bit more. And you might find your energy really, it makes a big difference. So that leads me right into relationships. Are you frequently finding yourself snapping at people? Or do you have people that you can confide in? Do you have people to talk to? Do you spend your time with people who drain your energy? That's a really important one. And do you feel like you can't say no to people? Everything we just talked about. If any of these things are things that are coming up in your life, then you may have some challenges with your relationships. And just like I said stress was a habit, right? And sometimes it is. And sometimes even the relationships in your life are habits. Sometimes the people you hang out with and spend the most time with in your life are really just habits. And sometimes they're habits that you need to reduce or even quit. Have you ever heard the saying that the 5 people that you spend the most time with, scratch that, let me start again, that you are the sum of the 5 people that you spend the most time with? That's the saying. So what I'm saying is, if you spend time with people who are really depressed, you're more likely to be depressed. If you spend time with people who are overweight, you're more likely to be overweight. And if you spend time with people who are stressed out all the time, guess what? You're more likely to be stressed out. So it's time to really evaluate your relationships. It's time to think about, are you spending time with people who stress you out? And look at your relationships and start nurturing the ones that nurture you, and start pulling back a little bit on the ones that don't so much. And don't just say yes to those relationships out of obligation. Stop being a people pleaser like we talked about just a minute ago, and start putting some boundaries in place with those people. Maybe your mother-in-law stresses you out, and maybe you talk to her 3 times a week. Well, maybe you can go to once a week. Or maybe if you already talk to her once a week, you can go to once a month, twice a month, something like that. Minimize, even if these are people who are in your life to stay, you can put a boundary in place and minimize your contact with them if they are doing certain things that stress you out. Now, of course, you can have a conversation with these people and let them know what the things are that they're doing that are stressing you out, and give them a time period and see if they can correct that behavior. But if they can't, then you've got to tell them. You've got to cut back. You've got to cut back on those people in your life. So sometimes it's not getting rid of certain things. Sometimes it's getting rid of certain people, and it's working on your relationships. And it's important to spend time with friends, and especially, especially friends that nurture you, because those are the people that you need as your support system. Believe it or not, it changes your hormones and it changes your brain chemicals when you have supportive friends to talk to. When you're talking to supportive friends, it actually changes your hormones and your brain chemistry. And so that's a healthy habit, something that you can do to improve your stress levels. So start taking advantage of that. Also, resolve disputes in your relationships. If you have things hanging over your head, try to air them out. Try to get them out in the open. One of the big things to do is practice forgiveness. Holding a grudge is really just a stress on you. So start to practice forgiveness today. Start to give forgiveness. And also, if you feel like you did something wrong to somebody, seek forgiveness. Because guilt is yet another stressor. And you can alleviate some of that guilt by seeking forgiveness. I have one more relationship thing I want to talk to you about. I want you to stop pretending. Stop fake booking. Have you heard this expression? I love this expression. We are so busy trying to post only the positive things on Facebook that we don't allow any negative in. And it gives us the false impression that all of our friends are leading perfect lives. Not even only all of our friends, all the people we went to high school with, all the people we went to college with, all the people we work with, somehow they all live perfect lives, and their kids never get cranky, and their husband never, throws stuff on the floor, and their, everything about their day is beautiful and perfect and smooth, and everybody just wins tournaments, and everybody gets promotions, and all of this good stuff happens to all of these people. Well, you know what? I was like cranky yesterday, and I was like looking for, something to like alleviate this crankiness. So I opened Facebook, and you know what? It made me more cranky. Because I was like, well, look at all these happy people with their happy lives, and they're all happy, 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 and here I am cranky and not feeling good about my life at this particular moment. Well, you know what? That happens. That happens to people. And I almost thought about posting it on Facebook, but I think I was too embarrassed, so I didn't post at all. But it's really interesting because there was a 2013 survey of 7,000 moms that found that 50% of moms are stressed out by social media. And the number one culprit? Pinterest. Of course, it makes perfect sense. Oh my gosh, I go on there and I'm like, oh, I'm not making all these beautiful crafts. I'm not making these beautiful dinner parties with these perfect little place settings. And oh my God, I can't even have a dinner party because I can't make that stuff. Wah! You can stress yourself out big time. Or look at that woman with her kids and those little pops, and they look so cute, and they look like little gingerbread giraffe men or whatever they are. Oh my God, are you kidding me? I don't have time for that. That makes me stressed out just looking at that. Makes me feel like a bad mom. Oh my goodness, no wonder it's all stressful. So you know what? If your social media is stressing you out, take a break. And please, do us all a favor. Take a break from fake booking, okay? Give us all a break and take a break from fake booking because it's stressing us all out. And maybe if we were all a little bit more vulnerable, a little bit more honest, we would all realize that maybe everything's not so perfect with everybody. But until that time, maybe just don't go into Facebook, especially when you're feeling stressed out or less than adequate or any of those things. And that also brings me to the media that you consume generally. There is way too much negative media out there. And I had this one particular patient, Monica, who I will never forget. She was exhausted and she was a stress case. And one of the biggest reasons was because she ran her kids around a lot during the day in the car. And she was constantly listening from news station to news station, CNN to this one, to that one, to that one. And she would get so worked up about all of it that she would even slam the steering wheel. Tell me that her body wasn't getting a message that she was totally stressed out. Yeah. If watching the news and reading it and everything is going to make you that stressed out, you've got to stop. You've got to stop. Okay? Clear? Good. Finally, let's talk about relaxation. When was the last time you took a vacation? If you can't remember, or even if it's been more than 90 days, I would tell you that it's too long. And okay, when I say that, I don't mean a major vacation, but at least a day at the beach, or an overnight maybe with your loved one. You need to take those little breaks. I've actually made it a pledge in my life to do 90-day mini breaks. Some of them more maxi breaks, but bigger breaks. But I really try to make taking rest a priority. And if it takes you the whole entire vacation to get to the point where you're relaxed, then you're not adding in enough relaxation into your day-to-day. So you need to find things that can relax you, relaxation techniques basically. And they can be anything from Tai Chi, Qigong, meditation, prayer, spiritual reading, listening to music, taking a bath. There's all kinds of things, and you know what's right for you, but do you do it? And sometimes it's just as simple as deep belly breaths. Put your hand on your belly and take a big deep breath and feel your belly expand when you take that big deep breath. And then feel it contract when you blow out that big deep breath. If you're taking your breath from up here, then you're breathing more shallow and you're not getting this relaxation response that you can get when you take a big deep belly breath. So do one with me right now. Belly breaths activate your parasympathetic nervous system. That relaxes you. It's the opposite of your stress response. See how much more relaxed I seem right now, even after taking that deep belly breath. It's awesome. Some other tricks that I really love are listening to guided meditations. I always say Google a guided meditation. Just Google the words guided meditation. Click on videos. There are thousands of free guided meditations to listen to, and they're awesome. Another thing I love is the app called GPS for Soul. You put your finger over the camera of your phone, and it actually evaluates your stress response by evaluating your heart rate. There's something called heart rate variability, and the difference between each beat, we call beat to beat variability. The difference between each heartbeat shows us how stressed we are. So if our heart beats at the same rate over and over, like let's say 72, 72, 72, 72, that's actually a sign of stress. It's more healthy for our body to have a difference in each beat to each beat. So to go from 71 to 69 to 73 to 68 and up and down and so on, so that the line would look like that if it was charted rather than looking like that. Interestingly, we see the same thing when we monitor babies' heartbeats, and that's where I first learned about this whole concept as an OBGYN, this beat-to-beat variability. But now there are all these studies that find that it's linked to stress in adults too. So you can measure it at GPS for Soul. It's a really cool app. And it'll give you relaxation techniques to do if you're stressed out. So you've got to find little stress breaks. And it could even be lying down with your eyes closed for 10 minutes. Even if you don't fall asleep, just lying down with your eyes closed for 10 minutes will help reduce your cortisol. And we know how important that is to reduce your stress. So really try to work on those relaxation techniques because they're super important. Yet another area where a lot of people stress out is finances. You've got to get some control because remember, loss of control is one of those emotional things that makes us feel stressed out. And one of the things that makes people really feel stressed out is that their finances are out of control. So first you've got to assess the situation, right? You've got to figure out where you're at, and then you've got to make a budget. You've got to figure out what you can afford to spend. And if you're already in debt, you've got to make a debt plan. You've got to consult a debt reduction specialist, make a debt reduction plan, make agreements with the creditors. Once you take all of those steps, you will feel so much better because you will be in control and you'll have a plan. And so that's a really crucial aspect of your life. If you don't have control over your finances and your financial world, you've got to get that control so that you can feel back in control and relaxed again. Finally, I want to talk to you about supplements. Now, it would be amazing and perfect if we could all do all those wonderful, perfect habits that I talked about every single day. I don't do that. I know you don't do that. One of the biggest things that really helps me fill that gap is supplements. And there are different supplements depending on whether you're burning up, burning low, or burning out. So at 3weekstoendlessenergy.com, you can learn more about a hormone quiz that I give to people to find out whether they're burning up, burning low, or burning out. And then you can learn more about the right supplements for you. So if you're burning up, some of my favorite supplements for that are phosphatidylserine. Phosphatidylserines generally decrease cortisol. So phosphatidylserine works really well to reduce cortisol and also to help your memory. Who doesn't need more of that, right? Calming herbs are also super important. Valerian, lemon balm, and passion flower are all great herbs for calming. Also L-theanine. L-theanine is an amino acid that helps us when we're kind of thinking and can't stop those thoughts from coming. So me personally, I take my Calm Energy supplement every night to help me go to sleep, and anytime I feel like I'm burning up, these are the supplements that I take. And I've kind of corralled these supplements together in this one supplement, everything that I mentioned, the calming herbs, the phosphatidylserine, the L-theanine, into my Calm Energy product because I feel like these are the most effective. Now, you can go buy these all individually or in other combinations, but if you want one that's really a high quality supplement, I've put together the Calm Energy for you. So supplements to help burning low and burning out. Supplements to help burning low and burning out are pretty similar because it's the same continuum. Sometimes you just may need higher doses if you're burning out, or maybe some additional support if you're burning out. So if you're burning low and burning out, the supplements that I would emphasize are number one, vitamins, like B vitamins are really important, and vitamin C is great. Magnesium is really great for energy and for reducing stress. Magnesium works to help support the adrenal glands. And then really importantly for burning low and burning out are adaptogens. Adaptogens are hormones that help our adrenals adapt to whether we need more cortisol or less cortisol. Some of my favorites are ashwagandha, rhodiola, ginseng, licorice. These can all help to raise cortisol if it's needed. And finally, I love adrenal extracts for people who are really in the later stages of burning low and burning out especially. Adrenal extracts can be really helpful. Adrenal extracts are basically desiccated adrenal gland. It's adrenal glands from animals, and that helps to support our own adrenal glands. Helps us to make a little bit more cortisol if we're really having trouble making cortisol. So those are my strategies. Those are the habits. Those are the daily habits that you need to get into. So first, remember, you need to measure your stress, evaluate your stress. We can't change what we don't measure. So evaluate your stress, figure out what's going on, what's stressing you in your life, maybe journal on it, and then look at the different habits that you have and how you can change these different areas of your life, how you can employ these 7 secrets, these 7 secret areas, really, how you can improve upon these 7 secret areas in your life to reduce your stress, because when you reduce your stress, you're going to improve your adrenals' ability to deal with stress, and when you do that, you increase your energy. And when you increase your energy, you get your spark back. And when you get your spark back, you can do anything. Endless energy equals boundless possibilities. And that is what I truly want for you. Wishing you the best of great health, great happiness, and of course, endless energy.